In this review, we'll check out the Mountaintop 60L internal frame hiking backpack, which I've owned for a few months now. So far, I've hiked roughly 40 miles or 60 kilometers with this backpack, so this review will be based on that. Although this video is about the 60L version, it will also be useful if you're planning to get the Mountaintop 50, 55, 65, 70 or 80L internal frame backpacks. They do have some minor differences like a few extra pockets and straps, but overall they're very similar. As far as I can tell, they're the same model, just in a slightly different size. If you want to skip to a specific section in this video, pause the video right here to see the table of contents. Also, we have a more in-depth guide with all the buying options on hikemuch.com, which I've linked out to in the video description. But for now, let's get right into the review. One thing that I like about this backpack is that it is so light. It weighs just 4 pounds or 1.8 kilograms. Of course, there are much lighter packs out there, but for an affordable internal frame backpack, that's pretty light. The ultralight options are usually much more expensive. The total capacity of the main compartment is 60 liters or 3,600 cubic inches. But if you extend the straps on top, you'll get 5 additional liters. When it's packed full, it measures at 30 inches or 76 centimeters in height, 12 inches or 30 centimeters in width, and 9 inches or 23 centimeters in depth. The Mountaintop internal frame backpack is made from polyester. The fabric definitely feels on the thinner side, which explains why this pack is so lightweight. As far as I can tell, the seams are stitched together pretty good. Nothing seems to come loose and there aren't any loose threads. One thing to note though is that the seams aren't sealed, which means they'll let through some water. In terms of water resistance, the fabric seems to be pretty good at resisting water. But as always, I'll do a test. I'll pour some water on the fabric, let it sit there for a few minutes, and I'll check whether anything's wet on the inside. And now let's see how waterproof the Mountaintop backpack really is. I'll pour some water on this fabric and some on this because they're slightly different. About 2 minutes have passed. Now let's get the water off and see if anything's wet. So, from the outside, it seems like this fabric hasn't soaked up anything. The zipper over here has soaked up a little bit of water. And this one, it looks like it has soaked up a little bit of water. Now let's check the inside. Nothing feels wet over here, but it does feel wet right here on this fabric. So this fabric isn't that good at resisting water, but this one is. Although this pack is somewhat water resistant, it's not waterproof. In heavy rain, you can pull out the built-in rain cover from the bottom compartment. I really like that they've included one because whenever I'm hiking, it usually rains a lot. All the straps and buckles feel somewhat thin and lightweight, like they're made for long-distance hiking, not wilderness backpacking. They've used YKK buckles for all the side and back buckles, and unbranded ones for the chest strap and the hip belt. All the zippers on this pack are also made by YKK. They all open and close quite smoothly, and the fabric doesn't seem to get stuck in them at any point. That said, they aren't sealed, which means they'll let through some water. The internal frame is actually removable, and it's essentially a large plastic plate with a metal pole on each side. If you ever need to, you can just take out the internal frame and throw the backpack into a washing machine. And lastly, I wanted to mention a flaw in this backpack in the top lid. At the back, it isn't sewn to the frame, and instead it's attached with these adjustable straps. If you don't pack the backpack full enough, the top lid will slide over the internal frame and leave an opening for some water to come through. Even when the adjustment straps are tightened to the maximum, there's still a gap there, which is very annoying. I also noticed that if you pack something heavy in the top lid, the whole lid will slide too far out to the back, which results in an improperly balanced backpack. The Mountaintop 60L internal frame backpack is pretty comfortable, but it's not the most comfortable pack that I've worn. In the back, it's padded pretty well, and I wouldn't say that the issue lies there. One thing about the padding is that these channels between the panels are too small and they don't let through enough fresh air, which results in a pretty sweaty back. Ideally, you want to have 80% of the weight on your hips, so having a nicely padded and a pretty massive hip belt is important in my opinion. Unfortunately, this one falls a bit short. Another thing about the hip belt is that it won't fit for skinny people. In the specification, it says that the hip belt is adjustable from 30 inches or 76 centimeters to 57 inches or 144 centimeters in waist size. I'm 36 inches or 90 centimeters in waist size, so for me it fits pretty good. But for instance, for my girlfriend, who is 27 inches or 70 centimeters in waist size, the hip belt is just too large. I measured that the torso length is adjustable from about 16 inches to 20 inches. Personally, I'm 18 inches in torso length and I keep it on the third largest setting. One thing that I don't like about this pack is that the shoulder straps stick too far out. Whenever you're wearing the pack, you can feel the shoulder straps sticking out into your back. You get used to that, but it's something that could be improved. The shoulder straps are adjustable at the bottom and you get load lifters on each strap. I don't know why exactly, but the shoulder straps seem to carry most of the weight. Maybe it's because of the way the internal frame is bent, or maybe it's because of the shoulder straps itself. One thing that I've read a lot in other reviews is that the load lifter straps seem to come loose after about 30 minutes of wearing the pack. I haven't noticed this issue myself, but I can see how it would happen. They seem to move around pretty easily. And lastly, this pack also has an adjustable chest strap, both in height and width. It also has a whistle in it, but it doesn't seem to work that well. And now let's talk about the pockets and all the storage options. Let's begin with the interior of the pack. At the bottom, there's a sleeping bag compartment which you can access separately from the bottom. It's divided from the main compartment with a fabric sheet which you can open if you want to. In the main compartment, there's a 3-liter pocket for the water bladder and also a hole at the top for the tube to go through. At the top of the main compartment, there's another fabric mesh pocket for all the smaller items. And now let's cover the exterior of this backpack. You get a large pocket in the lid, which, as I already mentioned earlier, slides too far off to the back if you pack something heavy inside. On the top, there are 4 loops where you can attach a climbing rope, a sleeping mat, or something similar. Just note that there aren't any adjustment straps included there, only 4 loops. 4 loops. On each side, this backpack has 2 compression straps, which can also be used to tighten something long like an axe, a tripod, or something similar. There's also a large zippered mesh pocket on each side for your water bottles. You'll also find these tightening loops on each side, which are also meant for securing something long like a tripod. At the bottom, there are 2 loops for attaching something to the bottom of the pack and 2 adjustable straps for attaching like a sleeping mat or something similar. One thing that I really like about this backpack is that it has a giant pocket in the middle of the pack, which I tend to use a lot. I like it because it's easy to open, it's very large, and I usually store my snacks, electronics, and other items that I need to access quickly. One thing that I don't like about this backpack is the 2 pockets that come on the hip belt. I was excited to have these at first, and upon first impression they seemed very spacious and very easy to use. However, when you're wearing the pack, the shoulder straps get in front of these pockets and they cut off about 1/3 of the total size. This makes it very hard to put my phone in there. Also, they're too far out to the back, so they're hard to reach into, and because they're so far back, the pocket gets bent around my hips, which makes it harder to store my phone in there. In terms of brand reliability and warranty, you really don't get that much with the Mountaintop internal frame backpack. Mountaintop is essentially a Chinese manufacturer with a website that looks like it was made in 5 minutes. When I got this pack, it mentioned some kind of a warranty, but it didn't say what's covered and for how long. So essentially, if anything happens to this pack, you're basically on your own, unless you can still return it to Amazon. And now let's get into my final verdict on the Mountaintop 60L internal frame backpack. Let's start with the pros. First of all, I really like the lightweight aspect of this backpack. Although the hardware and the fabrics all feel pretty thin, they don't look like they'll break anytime soon. The fabric is also water resistant, and this pack comes with a rainfly cover. Another thing that I like about this backpack is that it has this giant pocket in the middle of the pack, which I use quite often. It's really awesome that they've used YKK zippers and YKK buckles for an affordable pack, which means that they should hold up really well. And lastly, I like the design of this pack. In my opinion, it's a pretty good looking pack. But as much as I want to like the Mountaintop internal frame backpack, there are a lot of things that make me want to stick to other packs instead. First of all, the top lid isn't sewn to the main frame. Instead, it's attached with adjustable straps, and there's always a gap between the lid and the internal frame, which looks kind of awful and lets in some water. Another thing that I don't like is the shoulder straps. It's very hard to adjust this pack to get it to carry most of the weight on the hips. So if you'll be carrying heavy loads, you might want to get another pack instead. And lastly, I don't like the pockets on the hip belt. They're too far out to the back, and the shoulder straps get in front of them and cut down their size to about 2/3. So would I recommend this pack? Well, if you usually aren't carrying heavy loads and you're looking for something lightweight, cheap, good looking and minimal, then the Mountaintop is a pretty solid choice. But if you'll be carrying heavy loads, then this backpack just won't cut it. It's not the most comfortable backpack out there, and there are a few design flaws which are just there because this pack wasn't tested enough before being released. With a few updates from Mountaintop, this backpack could become the best affordable internal frame backpack. It has the potential, but it's just not there yet. We have a more in-depth review on our site hikemuch.com with all the buying options, which I've linked out to in the video description below. Also, if you aren't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button for more videos just like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.